Whether you're in North or South Carolina or anywhere else in the world, enter the Cat Cave to listen to your favorite Carolina Panthers podcast as part of the Keep Pounding Podcast Network, where you can find shows like Embrace, Debate, and Inside the Vault, and powered by the Fans First Sports Network. Welcome to the post-NFL draft show. I am Ryan Frick alongside, let's go ahead and welcome him first, Michael Davis. What's up, Mike? How's it going, man?
It is going good. I'm repping my App State team with this groovy shirt, talking about skiing. Love my Mountaineers, even though they didn't have a big presence this past weekend.
Yeah, I'm rocking the Gamecocks because the Panthers drafted a Gamecock in the first round. We're going to get to that here in a second. Let's welcome Shannon Smith to the show as well. Shannon, what's going on, bud?
Man, don't really have a team that I'm repping today. Just repping the Panthers, just going all black because I had training today with my job. But let's talk about this draft because a lot of moves surprised me.
Yeah, let's get right into it. The NFL draft took place over the weekend, and we actually, I mean, for the last month or so, the three of us have done mock drafts. We've talked about the Panthers and team needs, and we all sort of had this idea that the Panthers were going to go wide receiver with their first overall pick, and they did just that. However, they traded into the first round to get him. Now, we also talked about last week about the potential of trading into the first round, and I believe that I said it on this show that the only reason the Carolina Panthers would need to move into the first round is if they were going to move in early to get one of the biggest guys in the draft, or if they were just going to maybe, come in, if they weren't going to give up a whole lot to get late in the first round. And as they traded away their 33rd overall pick, the first pick in the second round, and the 141st pick overall, they got into the very last pick of the first round. They traded with the Buffalo Bills, and they drafted none other than Xavier Legette, the 6'1", 221-pound wide receiver out of the University of South Carolina. Michael, I'm going to shoot it to you first, man. I think both Shannon and I had Xavier Legette in our mock drafts, whether we took him at 33 or at 39, which is our original second draft position. Michael, what were your thoughts about trading up to get Xavier Legette so that the Bills couldn't get him at 32?
Yeah, I thought it was a brilliant strategy, and something that people are overlooking is one, there were teams talking to the Buffalo Bills at 32 to go up and draft a wide receiver, potentially Legette. Okay. The second part is by trading up into the first round, you now have a 5th-year option to where wide receivers are getting bank right now. We just saw A.J. Brown got an extension, Devontae Smith got an extension, C.D. Lamb is due his, Justin Jefferson's due his. What's the market going to look like in 3 to 4 years? Now you don't have to worry about that. If things work out with Legette, which you hope they do, then you have the ability to extend him for a 5th year and delay those financial responsibilities. So I was very pleased with Carolina, shocking the Carolinas and going up and trading, getting your guy with Legette at number 32.
Shannon, I'm bouncing over to you now because both of us had South Carolina taking the wide receiver product now out of South Carolina. Now, if you look at his career stats, they're not all that great. He did deal with injuries a lot in college at South Carolina. Last year, 71 receptions, 1,255 yards, 7 touchdowns. A lot of guys are comparing Xavier Legette to that of DK Metcalf of the Seattle Seahawks. Was it the right move to move up one spot to go and grab Legette, or do you think he would have been available had we waited until day 2?
I think it was a smart move for Carolina, and I think I've got a hot take. I know that you guys are probably looking at me very weird, but if Dan Morgan gets this draft right and the Panthers do well, his new name that I'm giving him is Danny Dynasty. That's what I'm calling him right now. I hope he does really well, and I think that he did really well by getting into the first round, because that was the grievance at first, was the Bryce Young trade. They mortgaged the farm. There's nobody in the first round. They don't have a first round pick. But Dan Morgan heard everybody and got into the first round and was able to do it. And he did what we were thinking, what all three of us were thinking, that a wide receiver was the biggest thing. This was a draft heavy and filled with wide receivers all day long. It was a good move to get in there and get the guy that you wanted. The Bills were in market for a wide receiver, and they probably would have got him if the Bills, which I kind of don't understand the rationale because Kansas City moved in and got a receiver, and they weren't able to get a receiver because they gave them chance after chance to do so. But the Panthers saw that and were like, yo, we better go ahead and get where we need to get and get the guy that we wanted because Worthy went, which was a guy that we had as well too. The young kid from Georgia, he kind of fell a little early in the mock drafts, and then later on he kind of fell a little lower. The young guy from Oregon was the same way. I think Xavier Legette is the right guy. He's a pro build at 6'1", 221 pounds, big guy, big target, strong target. Carolina needs a guy that is that big and that built and able to go downfield because Carolina's downfield threat has been not so great, if you would say non-existent. And this was a good move by Carolina, very smart move by Dan Morgan, and let Dan Morgan cook. Dave Tepper, let him cook.
Listen. We don't even have that on the agenda today to talk about the fact that there was a business owner, a restaurant in Charlotte that had a sign outside of their bar that said, "Let the GM make the picks." And none other than David Tepper walked into the restaurant to complain about it because, as I've been saying every single week on the show, David Tepper is the worst owner in sports. Like, how tiny does your manhood have to be? How large does your ego have to be to go into a local restaurant who is criticizing you on a street sign? Like, you make more than anybody in that restaurant ever will. You have more money than anybody in that restaurant ever will. And the gall for you to go in that restaurant and make a complaint about a sign because you are the worst owner in sports. Like, how dare you? Like, sell the team already. Anyway, I'm with you, Dan Morgan. I love this pick. A 4.3940 in the NFL Combine. I've said great things about this guy since we've been talking about this draft. There's not much more that I can say that you guys already haven't. Xavier Legette, now a Carolina Panther, to add into that wide receiver room with the likes of Jonathan Mingo and Adam Thielen. We also talked on this show about the need potentially to go and draft a running back because we don't know what the running back room is going to look like going forward with this new coaching regime. We just didn't think they were going to draft one so early. Now, to give you a little background information, if you've been living under a rock, Carolina had the 39th overall pick and traded that to the LA Rams for the 52nd overall, along with the 155th pick overall. And then they traded said pick away, along with the 142nd and the 155th pick, to get back into the 46th position in round 2, and they drafted a running back out of Texas in Jonathan Brooks. Michael, I'm gonna go back to you here, man. A lot of moves for the Panthers to get made. We saw the Panthers trade up to get back into the first round, and then instead of making their second pick here in the second round, they traded it away only to trade back up because they wanted to get this guy. 1,100 yards in college, averaged 6.1 yards a carry at Texas with 10 touchdowns to boot. He was ranked as high as the second overall running back in this draft by some publications, but they're being heavily criticized by taking a running back this early when they just gave Miles Sanders a big contract. We've talked about that a lot on this show. Chuba Hubbard is still here. They just re-signed Raheem Blackshear. Michael Davis, what are your thoughts about Jonathan Brooks getting drafted here in the second round for the Carolina Panthers?
Full government name. I like it. I thought it was a interesting move. I'm not upset with them taking Jonathan Brooks. We talked about it extensively on the show that they needed to do something else other than Miles Sanders. I know Dez has been on Out of Pocket several times talking about how Miles Sanders could do better in this offense with Dave Canales, and that might be so. But running backs have a shelf life, and for them to go get Jonathan Brooks, which everybody believes was the best running back in this class, I have different opinions on that. But for him, like, it works out. I know we'll talk about Sanders a little later on, but you pair the two Longhorn teammates together. What you needed to do was give Bryce Young weapons, give him protection, and through free agency, going and signing Hunt and Lewis, then you go in and you go draft Leggett and you go draft the running back as well. So really good stuff for the Carolina Panthers, really allowing Bryce Young to prove that, hey, I am the guy. And I think Brooks is going to help with that.
Shannon, if you look at his college career, Brooks only had 25 receptions in all of his collegiate career. I believe, matter of fact, no, check that. I think that was his final season. He only had 28 receptions in his career, 335 yards, only 2 receiving touchdowns. Michael mentioned that we just need to get playmakers around Bryce Young, and Jonathan Brooks may be that guy. But at 6 foot, 216 pounds, you kind of wonder, like, are we just getting another Chuba Hubbard? Are we just getting another what are we getting out of Jonathan Brooks? Shannon, what are your thoughts on this pick again? Because I'm going to be posing a much more important question after you give your feedback here with the running back out of Texas.
Now, when this pick happened, I was surprised by it because I thought that the Panthers should have went after Zach Frazier at the center spot. I felt like they were going to, but I think that they feel like they must have their starting center right now. So that is a question that was answered for me with this pick. And the next question that was answered for me is, what are they going to do with Miles Sanders? I think this is probably another way of saying, hey, look, we're going to put a little pep in your step. Either you get it right, or this guy right here is licking his chops. I don't think that Dan Morgan is trying to create competition, but I think competition is very healthy in your positions. I think it's very smart to have some type of healthy competition, and I think Brooks is some healthy competition for Miles Sanders and even Chuba Hubbard and Raheem Blackshear as well too. I think that he's healthy competition. You got this young guy that's coming out here, but it's like what MD said. There needs to be playmakers around Bryce Young. There needs to be guys that are going to get down the field. They need first downs. They need 6 points instead of 3. They need a running threat as well as a passing threat as well, because this offense has got to be able to make plays. This offense has to be able to make important calls. This offense has got to do better. And I think that the coaching staff is going to do their thing, and they're putting guys in there that are going to be a part of their scheme. And I think Jonathan Brooks looks like he might be a guy that's a part of their scheme.
Well, you both brought up Miles Sanders, which begs the question, what is next for the running back room in Carolina? You would imagine that during this NFL draft, if they were going to find a trade partner for Miles Sanders, they would have been able to get one and find their way back into the draft late, whether it's 5th round, even 6th round for a Miles Sanders. Considering the number of picks that were traded during this draft, and there's a lot of guys that were traded in the offseason, while the teams that traded players away retained much of their salaries. And when you look at the Carolina Panthers, they paid a lot of money to pay some guys up front. They gave Jadeveon Clowney a pretty good contract. They're still in the market to go and sign Stephon Gilmore to booster this defensive backfield. But when it comes to this running back room, you both beg the question, what's next for Miles Sanders? Do they find a trade partner for Miles Sanders, or do they give him one more chance in this offense? Michael, let's start with you. Does Miles Sanders get one more shot, considering that the Panthers just blew a pretty big, pretty early draft pick on a running back?
So if this was a quarterback position, like Atlanta fans are, scrambling right now because, you just signed Cousins all this guaranteed money and now you draft a rookie quarterback. You can't play both. Well,
Stay Falcon and Falcons.
It's a little bit different for running backs. I mean, just take the Detroit Lions, for example, this year with David Montgomery and Jahmyr Gibbs. Okay. They signed Montgomery and they drafted Gibbs, and everybody's like, what the heck? Like, are you going to trade Montgomery now? Like, what's the deal? But both of those guys, I believe, were 1,000-yard rushers for the Detroit Lions in their route.
They were 1,000-yard scrimmage yards. Yeah, they both had at least 1,000 scrimmage yards and over 10 touchdowns. I think it was the first duo in NFL history to do so.
So you can have multiple running backs in the backfield. The days of having just one guy to carry it 300 to 400 times a year and carry the load on his back is over. And it's helping running backs increase their shelf life. I mean, it's good all around. So I don't see a reason why you couldn't, split the carries between Jonathan Brooks and Miles Sanders. Now, if you want to give Miles Sanders the opportunity to prove that he can perform well in Dave Canales' system, he played well in Philadelphia 2 years ago. Now, last year was not good, but last year was it was a mess all over the place. Like, they changed offensive staff midway through the year, and that's not cool. Like, there's just so much you can do if you're a player in those situations. So when you look at this running back room, yeah, Miles Sanders, and Jonathan Brooks might share the load in the backfield, but I wouldn't be surprised because as you get through the month of August and running backs, succumb to injuries, or you get to the deadline and somebody's like, hey, I really need like a stud running back. Maybe they call the Carolina Panthers about, hey, what would you take for Miles Sanders? And I think the Carolina Panthers listen.
I do want to make a quick comment, and we're not going to spend a lot of time at it. We laugh about the fact that the Falcons drafted why can't I say his name? The quarterback out of Washington, Michael Penix Jr. But it could have been the Falcons drafting another tight end in the top 10 if they went out and got Brock Bowers to match up with the guy that he's going to be better than in Kyle Pitts in the NFL. Shannon, we got 4 more picks to get on, but I want to give you the opportunity to touch on it as well. Michael just talked about maybe Brooks and Sanders sharing the backfield without mentioning the fact that Hubbard was the better running back in Carolina. Who's the odd man out in this running back room in 2024?
I think that's to be determined because once again, this is a new system, and Dave Canales has not hung up the phone or slammed the door in Miles's face, and he shouldn't. I don't think he should right now because this is a new system. Now, mind you, if he's looking at it in training camp and thinking that he's not going to cut it, then maybe he does look for someone to trade yet. But once again, the inconsistency of the offense has been something bad for the Panthers. I don't really think it's all Miles Sanders' fault, but then again, he's a professional, so we got to chill on that one. We can't sit here and chunk it up to bad coaching and chunk it up to a bad offensive line because Chuba Hubbard still ate, regardless of that fact. But looking at what Chuba did, he was really faced with a lot of adversity as well, too. But I don't think that it's over for Miles Sanders, but the days could be numbered.
I love everything of what both of you were saying, and so it'll be interesting to see how this plays out as the Panthers make an investment in a running back here in the second round. The next pick, I'm gonna give us each 30 seconds to talk about because we've got 3 more picks to go, and I don't want to get us over time. I want to keep us at our time today because I know your time is valuable, as is ours. Round 3, the Carolina Panthers drafted Trevin Wallace, the linebacker out of Kentucky. He's 6'2", 220 pounds. He had 166 tackles in college, 10 sacks, 3 interceptions. Michael, give me your quick assessment, 30 seconds or less, about Trevin Wallace out of Kentucky.
Trevin Wallace might be the replacement to Frankie Louvu, or Josie Jewell might be the replacement to Frankie Louvu. And either way, you can, work with these guys. I think once you went offense, those first couple picks, you could have used it on a linebacker. And if Trevin Wallace, I really like this prospect. I think he was going to do good anywhere he lands. And I was thinking he would go to Dallas, but it appears like he's making his new home in Carolina.
Shannon Smith, he's got some SEC experience. What say you about Trevin Wallace?
I think it's a good move. It was a very good idea to place another linebacker, an inside guy at that. So that's where Louvu was in this year. Smart move, best available linebacker, in my opinion. Good move.
All right, round 4, the pick we're going to spend a little more time on here because this is a big pick here. Round 4, pick 101 overall. The Panthers take Jatavion Sanders. I'm hoping I'm saying that right. Jatavion Sanders, a tight end out of Texas, 6'4", 256-pound tight end. He was ranked the number 2 tight end in the draft behind Georgia's Brock Bowers by the Athletics, Dane Brugler. I hope I'm getting that name right. And last season, he had 12 20-plus yard receptions. That is only one fewer than none other than Brock Bowers, who was taken by the Raiders at 13th overall. Shannon, let's start. I keep going to Michael first. Let's start with you. You mentioned
What's
off
wrong
the
with
air.
that?
Well, Shannon mentioned, we talked about this guy off the air. Shannon, give us your assessment. Jatavian Sanders, obviously the Panthers lose Hayden Hurst in the offseason. Didn't really pan out as they were expecting. What are your thoughts on giving Bryce Young yet another weapon here in Jatavian Sanders?
I was hoping that they picked this guy here, and whoever picks him was going to benefit from him. I'm a huge Jatavian Sanders fan. I like this guy. Brock Bowers, nice. Very, very good tight end. Very good. And I knew he was going to get picked first. I saw that already coming. So that was nothing. So I was hoping that Sanders found a good fit. He got with the Panthers. I'm very happy about that pick. Very good safety valve. We talked about how the lack of tight end presence for Bryce Young was something that he couldn't help or he couldn't overcome. He's a bootlegging quarterback. He likes to throw outside of the pocket. He can throw on the run. Why not give him a big target? Why not give him somebody who can actually stretch the field at tight end as well too? Love the pick. This is my favorite one. I love Xavier Legette. I do. But this pick right here is my favorite, and I think he's going to be unsung, I believe. I think he's going to be the sleeper.
Michael Davis, what say you? Jatavian Sanders, the tight end, to join his teammate and Jonathan Brooks from Texas here in Charlotte.
Now, I'll say this, okay? People release their mock drafts and, it's cute to get the first overall pick right, or even the second or the third, or even the ninth overall pick right in your mock draft. But when you when you pick somebody with a fourth round in their mock draft and it actually comes to fruition, do you know how many things have to go your way to get that right? And one of those things that have to go your way is you have to be named Michael Davis. Okay. So I was right about this. I love this pick. I know Ryan's hurting because his guy Hayden Hurst is all the way across the other side of the country. But now you bring in Jatavian Sanders, and he's automatically going to be their number one option at tight end. And I believe this is a fourth round pick, to get a day one starter with a fourth round pick is pretty impressive. Like, the Carolina Panthers should be very, very, very pleased with getting Sanders. And I heard draft analysts talk about it. Like, you go through day one, you go through day two, and you wake up day three fresh and ready to go. But at the end of night two, you're looking at the board and you're like, wow, we could get him. We could get him. We didn't expect him to fall. I feel like that's exactly what the Carolina Panthers were doing when they said Sanders is still on the board. Let's go get Sanders. And now you have your starting tight end in Carolina, who's going to be able to grow and mature alongside Bryce Young.
Yeah, I'm kind of excited about this guy too. He had almost 1,300 yards and 7 touchdowns in his collegiate career at Texas. Again, when you talk about surrounding Bryce Young with playmakers, you've now added wide receiver, running back, and tight end in this draft. So they're obviously trying to build this offense up through the draft at this point. So we'll see if we can keep going from there. There's not listen, we could Michael's talking off air that we could cut this off. I think we can run through this because there's 3 more picks and there's not really all that much to say about them, considering they're guys that we needed. There were positions of need that we've talked about in this draft. So I think, Mike, we're gonna muscle through it here. Round 5, pick 157 for the Carolina Panthers was Chow Smith Wade. I'm hoping I'm getting that name right. A cornerback out of Washington State, a little undersized, 5'10", 184 pounds. He had 17 passes defended, 3 interceptions, 3 forced fumbles in college. At the NFL Combine, he was ranked the 23rd best cornerback in the Combine. He ran a 4.54 40, 34-inch vertical. So he's got some measurables here. Obviously, nobody's going to run the Xavier Legette type numbers, but just over a 4.5 flat 40, decent enough for cornerback. Shannon, I'm going to give this one to you. How do you feel about, we talked about the fact that we needed cornerbacks. We get one late here in this draft. How do you feel about Smith Wade?
I like him. Nose for the ball, fast kid, very athletic, could be a nickel corner. Could be a special teamer. Like the pick. Good stuff.
Michael, I'm gonna send it over to you for the next pick. In round 6, pick 200, we get defensive tackle Jaden Crumdy. I'm guessing, is it Crumdy or Crumdy, out of Mississippi State, a 6'5", 300-pound defensive tackle that finished his collegiate career at Mississippi State. Again, all 4 years at Mississippi State, playing SEC football, 8.5 sacks. At the NFL Combine, he was ranked the 20th best defensive tackle. He ran an under 5-second 40-yard dash, but he didn't do the bench press at the Combine. Michael, we talked about trying to booster this defensive line, trying to get after the quarterback from the defensive side. How do you like this pick, a defensive tackle, here with pick 200?
Just letting our people know who are listening, he didn't hit me with the corner question because he knew I was about to roast him for being pretty slow in this day and age. But it's that or whatever.
Oh, okay.
It's fine. It's fine. It's fine. Defensive tackle, I don't expect you to run 40 yards every play. That's more for my receivers and corners, so you have to have a good 40-yard time. 6'5", 300 pounds from Mississippi State. You know, we've seen some other Mississippi State players have some success in the NFL.
Yep.
Yeah, that's one of them. The other is a quarterback somewhere in the NFL.
Oh my God! Move on, sir.
I'm just saying. I'm just saying. But for this pick, 6th round, he was picked one after Tom Brady was many moons ago. It's going to be a practice squad guy. You hope that he can, grow and mature, but the Panthers have Derek Brown. They're okay at defensive tackle position. But maybe this guy, has some work in special teams. Maybe this guy is on practice squad and gets to learn from a guy like Derek Brown. As a project, I'm okay with
it. Shannon, we're going to send it over to you to our last draft pick. In the round 7, pick 240, the Carolina Panthers select Michael Barrett, linebacker, words are hard, out of Michigan, 6 foot, 227-pound linebacker, career stats at Michigan, 116 solo tackles. Shannon has dropped out. So, Michael, I'm going to send it back to you. 8.5 sacks, 2 interceptions for the linebacker out of Michigan. At the NFL Combine, he was ranked the 24th best linebacker. You mentioned that Crumdy could be a practice squad guy, as we're going to get Shannon Smith back in here. Shannon, give us your thoughts. Michael Barrett, national champion linebacker from Michigan, trying to add depth to this defensive linebacker core. What's your feelings on Michael Barrett?
All right. Sorry about that. Now I'm back now, so we're good. Adding depth, I think they were just drafting for need. That's about all I got.
All right, Michael, any more thoughts? I mean, the fact that the guy coached, the guy played for a national championship winning coach, not bulky, not crazy career stats, obviously, considering that he's, he fell to the 7th round. But what are your thoughts on getting this national championship linebacker here in the 7th round of the draft?
I think anytime you can pull from those college powerhouses and those who set behind, head coaches like Jim Harbaugh, I think you do it. 8.5 sacks in a career isn't like super high, but if he can, disrupt the quarterback and get in the backfield, I'm all for it, and we'll see what happens.
Yeah, listen, I like this pick considering you get it in the 7th round, 240 overall. It's about as close to the end of the draft as you can get. I'm not upset with that pick. I think overall in all, if Dan Morgan had a lot to do with this draft, he did a great job. Let's give our overall Cat Cave draft grades for the Carolina Panthers. Shannon, let's start with you. Give it from A to an F. What would you give the Carolina Panthers in their first draft with Dan Morgan at the helm?
Okay, Danny Dynasty, man. Let's see what you got right here. I'm giving it a B+. I like the receiver pick. Kind of would have gave it a little more had we would have got a lineman in there. But all in all, he drafted for need, and he got some marquee players. B.
Michael Davis, same question. A to F. What are you giving this draft class for Dan Morgan?
I mentioned this on Out of Pocket this week. You can't really grade draft classes until you're 4 or 5 years in advance, and you're like, okay, these are the guys who panned out. But if I had to grade this right now, I would go B-. I mean, I don't think it was a bad draft. I don't think it was like a great draft where you're getting your franchise quarterback with Bryce Young, but you didn't need that. You need a receiver, you need a run back, you need a couple pieces on defense, but overall, your main goal was to help Bryce Young. I think they did that.
I'm giving it a B- only because they seem so indecisive early in day 2. Like you trade up to get Xavier Legette, which is fine by me, but then you trade away the next pick only to trade the picks that you got by trading that pick away around to turn around and go get somebody else and trade back into the draft earlier. Like it just doesn't give me the confidence that they were completely confident early. It was almost, I don't want to say it was a panic move to trade back into the draft to go and get Jonathan Brooks, but at the same time, it doesn't give me confidence knowing that, like, yeah, we'll trade back. Oh, no, psych, we want to come back in now. Like it doesn't give me, as far as the players go, I think they got some phenomenal talent in this draft. We named them all: Legette, Brooks, Ja'Tavion Sanders, great guys to put around Bryce Young, and some defensive playmakers, some guys on defense to add depth, to add some more to this practice, not just the practice squad, but to add more competition on the defensive side of the ball to hopefully pick back where they left off last year on defense, considering the losses to both Brian Burns and Frankie Louvu. Guys, we almost made the 30-minute mark, but we're out of time now, right? Like we got to fit in all 7 draft picks. We all gave our draft grades, and that's been our show for the night. If you want to go find Michael Davis on social media, on Instagram at outofpocket_TRSR and at Drop the Mic Wrestling, go find Shannon Smith over on X at podcast_Smitty. And you can find your guy, Bully Rye, a.k.a. Ryan Frick, over on X at Tapouts and TDs, Facebook.com/Tapouts and Touchdowns, or I don't even know my Instagram handle. Next time we come on the show, I'm going to have my Instagram handle for you to give me a follow on Instagram, because I had a nice little reel go out from my other show that had about 9,000 views. That was pretty exciting for me. If you want to find the Cat Cave on social media, Facebook.com/TheCatCaveFFSN, or on Instagram and X at TheCatCave_FFSN. But until then, you may now exit the Cat Cave, but make sure you listen to more content over on the Tobacco Road Sports Radio's YouTube channel and more Carolina Panthers themed podcasts on the Keep Pounding Podcast Network, powered by the Fans First Sports Network. For Shannon Smith, for Michael Davis, I'm Ryan Frick, and we'll see you next time right here inside